So the book I reckon you need to read when you've hit disillusionment in your faith life is this one. It's called Going to God with Empty Hands, The Gospel Mysticism of Ruth Burrows, and it's by Michelle Jones, who's an Australian author, and she's done a really beautiful job of drawing on the spirituality of Ruth Burrows, who's a Carmelite nun. Why I say it's a great book to read when you've hit disillusionment is because often in the first stage of our spiritual life, as Michelle Jones describes it, is that there's a lot of enthusiasm, there's a lot of what we call consolations happening in our life, that we can be really encouraged, and that for the most part things are quite easy in our faith life. When we enter our second stage of our spiritual life, we're going through a stage of purification, a stage of going to the cross and realizing that we actually don't have what it takes. That in those early days, we might have feeling really amazing because we've discovered the love of God. We kind of feel invincible, like we can do anything because we have this great trust in God and we know about His promises. But in the second stage of life, all of this starts to unravel when we discover that we actually haven't got what it takes. We've had enough life experience to know our weaknesses, to know our sinfulness, and that we start to feel a bit empty. We start to feel like we've got nothing much to give to God. But Ruth Burrows and through this beautiful work, Michelle Jones have explained that this is exactly the point that God wants us to get to, because it's a point where we can really deepen in trust in God. It's a point where we go to the cross and we lay down the fact that we don't have anything to give, that we're completely reliant upon God, and that actually can bring us into our third stage of the spiritual life, where we just know ourselves as completely given to God. That process of purification, that process of stripping back of all that is not of God within us is now completed, and we find ourselves completely in union with God as much as possible on this side of heaven. So it's a great book to read if you're finding yourself a bit disillusioned by your weakness or feeling like the faith journey has become difficult, because it can help to walk us through, well, what's actually happening when we see these weaknesses in us, when we start to struggle with the attachments that we have, when we find it difficult to really go to the cross in whatever way that looks like in our life. So I really highly recommend it for anyone who needs that kind of encouragement, who needs a bit of spiritual guidance on this really long second stage of the spiritual life, which many of us are in currently, and which can have that element of disillusionment within it for each one of us.